that
you
ban
have
on an anti-corruption platform.
you have to let me answer your questions.
I'm just saying, anti-corruption platform.
That's fantastic.
Go ahead. Yep,
point.
go ahead.
Okay.
There was
So after you have and listen, if I give a good answer, that doesn't mean that you have to cut me off. Okay? I know that if I give a bad answer, you'd probably let me go all day. I understand now. This is our second day. Right. Well, let me answer you.
Go ahead.
Any other questions?
Biden, CrowdStrike, and what is the other specific corruption?
So, as far as,
anything.
listen, I mean, yesterday, by the way, anyone else have any other questions? I'd be happy to answer this one.
I know it's a hard question, but it's
Oh,
important.
no. Hold on a second.
It's a hard
Hold on.
question, because the president's not on the record mentioning anything other than
out of respect,
Biden, CrowdStrike. That's it, and you haven't mentioned anything else.
Okay, I'm happy to answer your question,
Please.
but all I was asking was, because you have a lot of colleagues here,
You guys want the answer, right?
the answer that one.
They
Okay,
did.
I'm happy to,
Thank you.
but just know you have a unique style, okay, and it's one that might not be as. I mean, you're not looking around to see if anyone else has any other questions, but if you
You're
want,
not answering it.
media, if you all would like to, I mean, you're doing a great job as Shills. If you ask a question,
because we're asking you tough questions.
but
sir.
this is the
We're
problem.
not insulting
the
you.
problem
Don't
is that
insult us.
you're actually insulting your audience.
No, I'm not. I'm
Because-
asking questions that people want answered.
You have testimony before the House
He's in
of a
jail now,
Ukrainian
too.
who is.
Paul Manafort's in jail
I
for
actually,
financial crimes.
if you like, I'll just step aside.
You know what?
Aside from the Bidens and CrowdStrike, a debunked Republican conspiracy theory claiming that the Ukrainians, not the Russians, interfered in the 2016 election, what is the corruption that Trump was supposedly rooting out? That is the simple question being asked over and over and over again of these Republican lawmakers. And Lee Zeldin spends just about every second he can complaining about the question instead of, answering it. Seriously, the guy gives a lecture about how he's going to answer. He asks if any other reporters have other questions that they'd like answered. He complains about the manner in which he asked the question. At some point you have to wonder why he didn't just walk away, since it would be just as partisan, but at least he wouldn't have looked so utterly ridiculous by trying to stall. But the best part has to be Zeldin claiming that she's insulting her audience by asking the question, what corruption other than the Bidens and CrowdStrike was Trump rooting out? But all that's insulting here is Zeldin's refusal to simply answer her question. Now, to be clear, the question is perfectly valid. The entire aid freeze was predicated on this issue of supposedly rooting out corruption, which means that corruption must be pretty important to Trump. And yet the only instances that we actually have of the president looking into corruption just so happen to be from Eastern Europe and involve his top polling opponent for the next election. That's it. The only instance of corruption that the alleged anti-corruption crusader has ever managed to confront has to do with Joe Biden. Yeah, I know that sounds totally legit. And beyond that, if the whole Biden and CrowdStrike issues were that serious, if they were that legitimate that Trump absolutely needed to withhold the aid from Ukraine while they were trying to survive at the hands of a Russian aggression campaign, why didn't the DOJ look into this? We have diplomatic channels for exactly this reason, and yet rather than use the resources of the United States State Department, the most capable diplomatic corps on the face of the earth, Trump opted instead to anoint Rudy Giuliani the unilateral power to get to the bottom of this. Rudy Giuliani, the guy who can't help but butt dial reporters on a daily basis. That's apparently the only person who was capable here. Got it. Now, the answer to why Trump actually tried to extort Ukraine could be found in Lev Parnas' secret recording that he just released.
Obviously, if they go on their own, Russia won't let them do it because they'll cut off a lot of their revenue.
How long have they lasted a fight with Russia?
Not very long.
No, I don't think very long. Without us, not very long.
Without us.
Without us, no.
Trump asks point blank how long would Ukraine last in a fight with Russia. He was determining just how necessary US support was for Ukraine, and when he was told that they wouldn't last more than 30 seconds, he figured Ukraine would have no choice but to give him anything in exchange for our support, including dirt on his political opponent. In other words, Trump knew what he was doing all along, and it didn't have a thing to do with corruption. So no, Trump isn't nor ever was concerned about rooting out corruption. He's only ever concerned with one thing, helping himself win. That is his sole priority. That is the only reason he withheld military assistance from Ukraine. Just ask Gordon Sondland.
I know that members of this committee frequently frame these complicated issues in the form of a simple question. Was there a quid pro quo? As I testified previously, With regard to the requested White House call and the White House meeting, the answer is yes.
Or Mick Mulvaney.
But to be clear, what you just described is a quid pro quo. It is funding will not flow unless the investigation into the Democratic server happens as well.
We do that all the time with foreign policy.
Or John Bolton, who just recently revealed that that is exactly why the military assistance was held up. The truth is that the only way that Trump has ever rooted out corruption is by implicating his own inner circle in illegal activities and having them sent to prison. And beyond that, by showing the entire world just how many members of the GOP would be willing accomplices in a Republican president's extortion scheme. So if anyone is looking to actually root out corruption, they can start by voting for Democrats this November.